Good afternoon. First of all, happy Independence Day. I'm sorry I didn't wear nothing in green, but I'm green inside my heart. Well, Pastor Poju Oyemade, Dr. Yemi Kale, Mr. Segnen Odegahabi, Mr. Ndidi Nomeli, Mr. Lick Alder, Dr. Joe Abba. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, it is such a privilege and a great pleasure to be here in Nigeria. What a country, what an incredible nation. Thank you very much for welcoming me and inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I would like to thank the organizers, Pastor Oyemade, for the work that they do and for their contribution for fostering a timely and important dialogue. I would like to start by saying how much I admire the resilience and energy of people of Nigeria, of you. A country that is not just stunningly beautiful, but also proud of its rich heritage, which draws strength from its diversity. From arts to food to modern technologies, you have left a deep mark in the world's tapestry of beauty. And Nigeria's contribution to the continent and in the world are highly recognized and deeply appreciated. In fact, I believe that Nigeria has many lessons to give to other countries, and I'm humbled to come here and share the special story of my country's birth and growth, the Republic of Kosovo. When I think of Kosovo, I'm often reminded of a beautiful way that one of your amazing contributions to the world, the writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, described Nigeria, her country. She said, "Nigeria is a country of stories. Everywhere you turn, there is a drama, humor, tragedy, beauty. It is impossible not to be inspired." And that is exactly how I feel about my own country, Kosovo. So, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you as someone whose past was shaped by the wars at the end of the 20th century, the very last of which in Kosovo touched me, my family, my country, directly and painfully. I will start with some historical context, for in today's world, context is everything. From the end of the World War II through the late 1980s, Kosovo was a part of Yugoslavia, a multi-ethnic socialist federation of lands long ruled on resisting the empires to its west and east. Though Yugoslavia was supposed to be a country of equals, Kosovo was often at the receiving end of brutal campaigns that sought to punish those that demanded equal rights and treatment. It was only allowed the basic right to higher education in the early 1970s, and it was the most economically backward part of the federation due to the lack of investment, often at the receiving end of repressive and discriminatory policies. When Yugoslavia began to turn apart by Serbian nationalism in the beginning of 1990, Kosovo, along with other republics, demanded that the will of its people to be an independent country, had not a subjugated province, be respected. Those peaceful demands occurring as the Berlin Wall had fell and Cold War ended were very much inspired by the winds of the democratic change occurring in Eastern Europe as the chain of the communism and authoritarianism were coming off. What followed were bloody crackdowns, initially in Kosovo and then in Croatia and in Bosnia, only to circle back for the final and brutal face-off in Kosovo. For the most of 1998 and 1999, the Serbian repression reached its peak in Kosovo as the daily killing of civilians became a norm and campaign of ethnic cleansing emptied out Kosovo in less than 2 months. For the purpose of the ethnic cleansing, nearly 1 million refugees were pushed out of the country. An effort by Serbia to also destabilize Macedonia and Albania. Inside Kosovo, Serbian forces in door-to-door operations rounded up Albanian men of all ages to summarily execute them. Families were separated. Many women were raped in an effort to not only dehumanize them, but to use this horrendous crime as a tool of war, a weapon to further terrorize the civilian population. It was indeed a horrific picture, one that the world was embarking on the 21st century with hope of embrace of democratic values was not permitted to tolerate. Innocent civilians were being slaughtered. Little did it matter what the end game was, but the use of force for the purpose of ending this incredible suffering became unavoidable. As columns of refugees and terrorized civilians were televised around the world, just shortly after similar horrific events took place in Rwanda and then again in nearby Bosnia, a big question hung above the international organizations that had voted to end this type of suffering, to never tolerate an extermination of people due to an ideology or belief of superiority. Equipped with the lessons of past and these tragedies still fresh in everyone's mind, the Western world decided to act in defense of its fundamental values to prevent another genocide in a doorstep of the European Union. War was not their choice, but after a decade of sanctions and pleas, diplomacy and negotiations, a military intervention by NATO became a necessity. Surely, this was not a light decision to make in a world where nation-state is the center of all laws and the conventions. But what good were conventions and laws if they failed to protect the people from their own respective state? After the humanitarian intervention of NATO to end this episode of wars in Balkans was completely successfully, Serbian forces finally withdrew from Kosovo, and Kosovo became a United Nations protectorate. Countries around the world committed ground troops, including this country, to consolidate the hard-won peace in Kosovo and to create conditions to guide Kosovo towards building its so much hard-won democracy. About 1 million of refugees returned to their homes in the days following the end of the war. The fastest return of refugees to date. Almost all found their homes turned into rubbles, their extended families scattered in mass graves, their sons gone, their husbands missing. There were tears, and there was anger. Rebuilding the physical damage and the emotional wreckage that the war had caused took time and took patience by all of us. Amid competing priorities and our strong push for independence, we had to lay a sound foundation of democratic institutions, of a free market economy. We, together with our international partners, had to transition Kosovo from a war to a peace, from authoritarianism to democracy, from state-controlled economy to capitalism. All this in climate of political limbo, where Kosovo was neither a state, as its Albanian majority demanded, nor a province, as Serbia claimed. Kosovo has made a great stride since 1999, my dear friends, but progress in Western Balkan region remains still quite fragile. So, dear friends, at the end of the conflict, we were faced with the stark choices. Where do you pick up? Where do you really start? Our entrepreneurial spirit told us we had to rebuild and to develop. Our emotions leaned on remembrance, and our vision for a free and democratic Kosovo guided our political actions. Above all, we wanted to ensure that we build the foundation for society that includes each and every one. For fear and inclusivity, for fair and inclusivity, to never have a place in the hearts of people of Kosovo. We had resisted exclusion and violence, and we did not want to allow the tragedies of the past to be repeated towards anyone living in our country. My generation, my dear friends, was shaped by war, but we were not going to let that define us. We also needed to build a brighter future for ourselves and those that come after us. Overcoming the individual and collective pain took perseverance and commitment from everyone, the Kosovo citizens and our international partners, friends and allies. For me, the commitment meant joining the Kosovo police, we heard earlier. I had the honor of serving there and rose through the rank of becoming the first 5-star woman general in the entire region and by age in the entire world. I would like to underline here the importance of women in society and in peace building. Women in the police, as well as in other security institutions, have broken taboos that once claimed security was the exclusive responsibility of men. It was the participation of women in the security sector and the security structure that played a crucial role in building a society where every citizen takes responsibility and contributes to strengthening the rule of law. Inclusivity was key. Tearing down social norms that were held as absolute truth was just as important and crucial to building that sustainability. Through their perspective and their commitment, women have placed themselves at the very heart of protecting citizens, defending marginalized groups, fighting corruption and organized crime, and shaping a just society for everyone. They have faced professional risks as well as social challenges. I know very well on my own skin, and they have overcome them with determination and with a bold success. Across the world, there are countless examples of women who have contributed to the peace and security. And I am proud to say that the women of Kosovo stand among these examples, offering their own concrete proof of what women can achieve. And they can achieve, we can achieve absolutely everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, in 2011, at the age of 35, I was elected the President of the Republic of Kosovo. It was the greatest honor in my life. I became the first female head of state in the entire region of the southeastern part of Europe, and by age, the youngest democratically head of state today. My mission to guide my country through a difficult time was both challenging, but at the same time rewarding. And I gave my best to really succeed. My focus as the President was always to respect and include all communities, especially those that are forgotten, suffering, or whose voices we did not hear so far. Among the many things, I am proud of two clearly stand out: lifting up and over 20,000 survivors of the war rape time who were stigmatized and ostracized, and for advocating for building bridges with minorities who considered Kosovo their home. It was a pledge we made to ourselves when, along with our international partners, we declared Kosovo an independent state. We promised to end the cycle of hatred that had consumed far too many generations. So, my dear friends, as you may all know, it is not easy to turn a page, but for that we found some larger than life inspirations coming from this continent. The focus would be on the future, without forgetting the past and while recognizing where we come from. But once my term ended back in 2016, I asked myself, what's next? Because I retired twice in my life, once as a 5-star general and second as a head of state with my 40 years of age. Life goes on, and the good thing about democracy is that it moves in cycles. So rather than deciding first what to do, I first reminded myself of what made me initially join the Kosovo police. That initial drive, my dear friends, is still with me even today. For me, the answer was simple: service. Service to my country. Service to ideals of peace, equality, and progress for all, in particular, regardless of ethnicity, origin, race, gender, or political opinion. And that is why I founded the Haga Foundation, an NGO that is helping women and men of all ethnic groups in Kosovo. And we are working for social inclusion, for ethnic and regional reconciliation, as well as for sustainable peace. So, my dear friends, one key component of the success of the country is the health of its democracy. It is unfortunately commonplace to associate democracy simply with election cycles. In reality, democracy goes way beyond elections. It is a system in which rule of law prevails, in which everyone is equal, and in which it is the people who actually are in charge. A system with separation of powers, protection of rights and freedoms, pluralism, civic participation, accountability, and beyond everything, transparency. No wonder that democracy is sometimes nominal. In fact, we need to work actively in bringing citizens closer to decision-making, thus truly creating functioning democracies. And we are witnessing a democratic backsliding, my dear friends, in many parts of the world. And this is a concern that we ought to address. Instead of allowing to become an inspiration for the rise of autocratic leaders who have a tendency to capture institutions and to ruin the progress made, this is crucial for our collective peace and security. So, my dear friends, I am well aware that changes are easier said than actually done. But we need to be bold enough to adapt to changing time, to show readiness and commitment. We ought to aim to create institutions that are independent and ensure checks and balances. Institutions that are resistant to extremist ideologies that are on the rise throughout the world. Institutions that are guarantors of civic rights and civic liberties. And once we achieve this, we can say that we have seen democracy at work. But until then, we must not get discouraged, and we must never give up. Or even worse, open way to populist and nationalist ideologies that are ready to exploit the emotions of our citizens with promises that are impossible to be kept and risk regional peace and stability processes no matter where we are. Achieving all this requires a joint effort, requires active participation at all levels of our societies, including women in the decisions and ensuring the voices of all communities and underrepresented groups are taken into account. Their voices must not be an afterthought. Change cannot rarely and solely on the goodwill of male politicians. Sorry for the men in this room. We need everyone, women and men, working together for a more democratic, resilient, and inclusive future for every country. So, my dear ladies and gentlemen, as a woman leader, I know that the path forward is often filled with obstacles. But those obstacles do not exist because of the lack of talent or the lack of the willpower. They exist because society has not always treated everyone equally. These successes, where we celebrate today, is built upon centuries of struggle by men and by women in communities who never give up. And today, we continue that fight to ensure that everyone is treated equally. We cannot ignore the grim reality around the world. The 21st century of promise is also a century of increasing dangers and conflicts. While governments can do and should do more to respond to the needs of their citizens, of our citizens, but also to the global peace and to the security. We should never forget that peace is not merely the absence of war. It is the presence of justice. And one way, add to equality and understanding. I am therefore proud to join you all today and to encourage each and every one of you to continue your struggle, to continue our struggle for equality and for understanding. Despite the fact that the future seems grim at the moment, I am an optimist that we will manage to navigate all the currents that have been disrupting our normal flow so far. Yes, there will be resistance. There will be a backlash by those bent on quick gains and polarization. But we shall not get discouraged, because the fight for democracy will always place us in the right side of the history. And I am telling you out of my own example. Even if the path ahead feels uncertain, I believe we can and will overcome the forces that threaten our peace and threaten our progress. I will, my dear friends, stand with those always who share the values of freedom, peace, equality, progress, and understanding. And I invite each and every one of you to do the same. Long live Nigeria, long live Kosovo. Thank you.